All right, so once you have that in place, and I already have a CP15 database here, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. So I'm going to right click under my Server Explorer, and I get to that by View, Server Explorer, inside of Visual Studio. Right click, and I chose Create New SQL Server Database. So it'll ask me for my database or server name, and I'm just going to put in local/SQL Express. Using my Windows authentication, I can put in a name. So for mine, it'll be 15ss-cp/midterm. Get a front row seat?
Can't see back there.
No. So I now have a database connection under my Server Explorer. If you're curious, you can use Management Studio, and you can connect to this same SQL instance, and you can see where your database, you can manage the database, maybe is a better way to put it. So you can come in here, you can create tables and do all of that work from right within here, just as you can within Visual Studio. All right, so I'm going to come in here. We're going to be managing users, so I'm going to right click and add a user table. My designer will pop up. I like to jump in while it's still loading and just set up my table name. So my table will be user, and this will be my identity field. And then if you're comfortable or want to practice your SQL, you can just start jumping in here and do first name, varchar max, last name, varchar max. We're going to do username, password, email address. Let me uncheck these. We can even add fields like date created, date modified, and what would be the last one? Yeah, we'll just go with those two. Now the reason I chose datetime 2 as my type is because the datetime 2 type out of SQL actually maps directly to the datetime type inside of the .NET framework. Datetime supports a true from 0000 or January 1st 000 to 9999. The standard date time uses, it's a smaller bit range, and I forget, it's like it's not the 1971, it's the I forget now. It's a smaller range, so it's not as precise. You don't have as big of a breadth of options. So datetime 2 is the one I typically work with. All right, so we've got that set up. So we're just going to push that database table up to the database by using the update button. We'll generate the insert script. We'll choose update. And update complete. One thing to be aware of and make sure that you do is make sure that your ID field is set as your identity. And you can also select the column, come over to your properties dialog, open identity specification, and make sure that is identity is set to true, or simply add identity in the declaration. That tells SQL Server that you want it to auto number. If you don't do that, then it's going to expect you to insert an ID or an integer value into that field. And you can, but you probably don't really want to.